Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, it's fall, so one of my favorite baits to throw in the fall, especially if you got stained water like we got right now. We've had a lot of rain, obviously, and so we've got some pretty dirty water, but it's not like overly dirty. And so whenever you get in that type of situation, you got fall where the fish are moving in the backs of the creeks, up shallow anyways, and you get dirty water, there's not a whole lot of baits that are better than a spinnerbait, especially if you're fishing around laydowns or things like that. We've got some laydowns here. That's where we're going to fish. But on this video, what I wanted to do was kind of break down the retrieves that I use in general for fishing a spinnerbait. If you're new to spinnerbait fishing, this can be very helpful to just kind of, give you a little bit of confidence. Are you doing it right? I'm going to show you if you are. So today what we're going to be fishing, this is the Z-Man Sling Blades Power Finesse. This is the 3/8 ounce version in Sexy Shad, and we've got this little lead Colorado blade and a little Indiana blade on the back there for a little bit of thump, a little bit more than a willow blade. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I got my little chest mount here so you can kind of see exactly how I'm working this spinnerbait. So let's get right to it. Okay, so obviously you can fish a spinnerbait in a lot of different situations. Clear water, dirty water, all of the above. Spinnerbaits just flat out work. Today we're fishing the shallow, dirty water, so my retrieves are going to be catered to that. But essentially, spinnerbaits are pretty easy. You can just cast them out there and reel them back and really just, change the speed that you're reeling the bait in, okay? So just a straight retrieve. And in fact, this is one of the best ways to retrieve a spinnerbait. In fact, this is my preferred method of reeling in a spinnerbait or retrieving a spinnerbait if I'm, fishing during the winter time or fishing, a steeper bank or something like that, where I'm just trying to slow roll, and I'm not really going to be adding any action to it. I'm just kind of reeling it, and again, vary your retrieve based on the depth, the clarity, the time of year, things like that. The colder the water, the slower you want to move in general. The dirtier the water, the slower you want to move. The clearer the water, the faster you want to move. And the warmer the water, the faster you want to move. That's kind of like a general rule. So that's the first one, just a straight retrieve. That's one of the beautiful things about a spinnerbait is, a lot of people like to make it more complicated than it needs to be. They tend to, overthink it, but really a spinnerbait, you can just cast it out there, reel it back. Of course, these have been terrible pitches, the last 3 pitches I've made. Let's try this again. See if we can get a bite. Okay, so that is the first retrieve. And again, that's going to cover a ton of bases. A straight, just cast and reel it back in with varying speeds is going to be your primary. And a lot of times that's going to catch a lot of fish. Now, when I'm fishing a spinnerbait as a shallow, fishing technique like I am today, a lot of times what I want to do is add some, and I say this, in relation to fishing shallow, but you can do this fishing deep too. If the fish are real active and they need a little bit more action to the bait, I like to pop the rod tip just a little bit. Okay, so like have a straight retrieve, and then every once in a while just pop the rod tip, and that just gives the spinnerbait a real quick erratic action, and sometimes that is exactly what you need to trigger a strike. I do this with a lot of different baits, from swim jigs, chatterbaits, even crankbaits. And so you're just adding just a small little pop, and a lot of times I'll do that little pop when I'm passing over or around, whatever type of cover or structure I'm fishing around. So pop, I just hit that little limb over there and pop the rod tip. And a lot of times that little action, is all you need to trigger a strike from a fish that wouldn't hit that bait just on a straight retrieve. Okay, so these are really the primary techniques. Now, a third technique, which I rarely use, okay, but is one that you can catch them pretty good under certain circumstances, especially if you're using a single Colorado leaf or a Colorado blade spinnerbait primarily. Is a lot of times what you'll do is bring it to a piece of cover, bring it over, and just let it fall on a slack line, okay? And on the fall, it's important to use a single Colorado blade because on the fall, it will spin as it's falling. If you have two blades, the lead blade always seems to create a lot of you know, disturbance in the water, and it doesn't fall right. So like when that's really only when I'm using a single Colorado blade spinnerbait. But that is one that essentially, you know, I'll kind of show you again because there's more to it. So when you're letting it fall, you know, a lot of times you'll just get that bite on the fall, and then you'll just kind of lift it up and let it fall back down a lot of times. So it's almost like a yo-yo technique. So you can do two things. You can either just, you know, let it fall as it passes cover, you know, or you can yo-yo it all the way back to the boat. So with that technique, it's quite different. And again, I only use it under certain circumstances. I can remember pretty much every fish I've caught in my life fishing it with a just straight drop technique with a single Colorado blade. You know, it's fun when it happens, you know, because it's almost like a jig bite. They'll hit it on the fall. But anyways, these are just some ways to retrieve them. The first two are the ones I really want you to pay attention to. The other one was just kind of a bonus. You know, I don't think that you're going to have too many situations where you're going to yo-yo your spinnerbait until you start experimenting with it. But for the most part, it's all about a nice, steady retrieve, fast, slow, or somewhere in the middle, depending on the conditions and the mood of the fish, or a retrieve where you're mixing in some pops of the rod tip. Something like that. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you, if you enjoy this content, consider hitting that subscribe button and liking and sharing the content as well. But other than that, I hope you have a lot of success with these retrieval techniques. I'm going to see you out on the water. Make sure you trust the process.